Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Friday Roundtable Show. It's episode 247. I'm back from my dental woes. I've been boring the panel with some of my stories, folks. I'm bankrupted now by the dental profession, but there we go. We've got a great roundtable. We've got some great news stories, and we've got a great main topic, which is utilizing how to expand the power of WordPress through custom fields and some plugins that can help you with that. But I'm going to let my great panel introduce themselves first. Ladies first. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Sally Getch. My business is WP Fangirl. I am building custom sites for growing businesses and nonprofits that aim at serving your business goals before your web style trends. And I'm also the organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup in Oakland, California.
Oh, Chris, would you like to? Oh, sorry, I'm being rude there. Let my co-host. I'm sorry. Does my co-host want to introduce herself?
Sure. I'm Kim Shivler. You can find me at kimshivler.com. I'm a communications and technology instructor.
Oh, great. Thanks, Kim. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of Lifter LMS, which is a plugin for building and selling courses and membership sites, and I'm happy to be here.
If you're watching the video, it looks like Chris is just about to go on a mountaineering expedition, doesn't it, really? But we're always very impressed, Chris. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name's John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design, and that's running out of Sacramento, California. What about you, Jonathan?
Oh, I'm going to introduce Adam first, actually.
Oh, that's right.
Yes. Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Adam. I'm the content writer and social media type person over at Blue Steel Solutions.
Oh, more than that. A powerful producer of content, folks. And I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We're a maintenance support company, only specialising in WordPress, with an emphasis of learning management systems, which education is, in a strange way, a passion of mine. It's a bit of a contradiction. There we go. So, folks, we've had some great news stories this week. I'm going to go straight into it. If I can get my browser in position, I've got all these screens. I started off with a great interview on Post Status with Matt Mullenweg, almost 60 minutes long. I'm just going to give you what I quickly thought of it, and then hopefully the panel's going to jump in and say I'm talking nonsense. I thought it was a great interview. So, like I say, it's 60 minutes long, covered a lot of material. I agreed with almost 80 to 90% of it. But the bits that I didn't agree with, I was quite amazed at Matt's attitude in some ways, especially, obviously it was slightly veiled, but to me there seemed to be some dismissive comments about Moulton's and other people's remarks about using analytical data. And I was a little bit aghast by the attitude, really. But was that just me? I'm just opening it up now to the panel.
Well, I was listening to this yesterday while driving back and forth to get my car repaired because there was a safety recall. And, I was curious to hear this. And, my first thought was, I'm not sure Matt understands what the word ossified means, but...
I didn't have any idea.
Regarding the telemetry, I thought it was interesting because I don't think he'd shared his concern regarding the privacy issue so much before in his comments on it. I don't know that I absolutely, agree that there is enough information about how real people out there use WordPress without having this data. And I do think there are ways around, invading people's privacy if they voluntarily participate. I mean, it's not as if there is a position that WordPress is taking about gathering data that would say, oh, if you collect this kind of data, we won't let you in the in the repo, because of course all of us have installed plugins that say, would you let us track, some anonymous information about how you use this product? And you either say yes or no. And, so I think that he said more than he usually says, which is good. I don't know whether I agree with the answers. And I think the part of the problem with the things like, user testing and so on is that unless they're doing some user testing that we're not aware of, most of that, most of the people who participate in that are closer to the developer side than the average user out there side of things. And I don't know if you can get the same information. And I also think the comments about Jetpack and churn were interesting. I have a feeling that this might be one of those where, correlation does not imply causation.
To say mildly,
we have another story we're talking about where, a Jetpack comes up as an issue. And I just think, well, that's interesting, but maybe it's because the people who decide to install Jetpack and get a WordPress.com account and do all those things already feel a stronger level of commitment in some way. I don't know. I think that one would bear investigating. But it's certainly worth listening to the interview.
I'm not surprised as always, Sally, you've managed to focus in the two most interesting, well, I found the two most contradictory, I'm struggling, parts of this interview. But my feelings towards it were going up and down as it progressed. I was all over the place with my feelings about it. Did you manage to listen to it, Chris, at all? Or?
I did not get a chance to listen to that one yet, but I just want to say I'm not sure what stance was taken on instrumenting the process so that they get intelligent data and the philosophy around that. But I think that's absolutely critical these days to improve products. And I think it's also very important from a privacy standpoint to give people the option to opt out if they want to. But if you're not collecting data of how people are using stuff in reality, and you're not figuring out a way to solve that problem that Sally's talking about, where making it appealing to not just developers, so it's a more representative cross-section of the user base, you're just missing out on a huge amount of important data that can help, make products more useful, get better faster, and get better results for the people who use them.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Obviously, we've got another story that's in some ways I feel strongly related to this. So I want to keep this part of the conversation about, if you listened to the interview, what was your response to what Matt said? But I think you're spot on, and I think that was another contradiction, because obviously he brings in Jetpack, and he uses data to support, which I think is slightly dubious data to support his intellectual position. So in some ways, it was all over the place. Did anybody on the panel also listen to the? No, you didn't, John. What about you, Adam? Did you manage to listen to it?
I didn't get to listen to it, but I feel opinionated about it anyway.
Oh, good.
That's right.
What we like. That's what we like to hear.
Bar you from having an opinion. This is America.
No, I just talk about things I don't understand all the time. No, I mean, at least they're not pulling a Facebook and manipulating things behind the scenes and not telling anyone. I like the idea of trying to be transparent of it. And at WordCamp DFW this past weekend, one of my favorite talks, Tom from Intelligence WP, he had this quote that he started with, and he said, "I'd rather have a fuzzy number for something important than good numbers for things that don't matter." And we do need some sort of data collection, and there's always going to be a balance with modern software of any sort between privacy and data collection. And that's just not something you can get away from. So, the fact that it's being discussed openly and that, Matt's coming out there, I mean, he's always going to have an agenda a bit as long as he, runs Automatic, and, there's no way around that. But, I think that it's something that it's better that we're talking about it than that it's just happening without anyone, just this is what we're doing. So good luck.
Yeah, I could see it. Like I say, I had really, like I say, I was all over the place listening to it, but it's always fascinating listening to Matt and his thoughts. I think we're going to go on to the other story because it's related, and I thought it was a fantastic post by Matt from the Matt Report. I just thought it was a fantastic blue-collar WordPress worker, and the 2,500 websites built to grow the CMS. Did this start with? I'll give you my brief views on this. I think Matt was really did a fantastic post here, and I think he kind of verbalized what some of the less obvious reasons why some people in the WordPress community are getting a little bit hepped up about how things are going recently. And he kind of verbalized some of those views really fantastically in this article. Let's start with Sally. What did you think about this one, Sally?
So I was very interested to read this, and I thought he made some very good points that, the spread of WordPress, I suppose, is partly due to people simply coming across it, finding WordPress.com, hearing whatever. I mean, one of the things that didn't get discussed very much in the interview with Matt Mullenweg was the marketing question about, marketing WordPress, not simply WordPress.com and, let's put some ads up, but WordPress as a platform. And, I've peripherally viewed the marketing team and Make WordPress and kind of what they're trying to do there. But, a lot of how WordPress has spread is because somebody comes to an agency or a developer and says, I need a website. And the agency has chosen to use WordPress. And so that's the kind of website that they get. They don't necessarily know anything about the software. They don't care about the software. They want they want a website that works. They want maybe a website that they can update easily, and they're going to take the recommendation of somebody they trust. And so many of us here build websites for clients, or we have in the past built websites for clients. And that certainly has, helped the spread of websites, because then, if your clients are happy, they send you more work, and, you choose to do this. And so, that is part of where this comes from. And indeed, most of the people who hire someone to build a website versus trying to build it themselves don't pay a lot of attention to what plugins are installed to do which, and what, is Jetpack there, is Jetpack not there? I mean, there are certain features that are in Jetpack that people like the publicize, but there are other plugins that will do that also. So, people like the effect. I think for, part of the point of Jetpack initially was kind of to ease that transition between the .com and the .org. And so, for those people, perhaps the fact that it feels more familiar to them is a good thing. And yet, it seems to me that, the spread of Jetpack is mostly due to the aggressive marketing of Jetpack and having, having hosting companies engage in this partnership where if you use their one-click install, you get Jetpack as part of that collection, and, which is one reason I always install WordPress manually. And so, I think Matt made a good point that, there are all these people out there who are helping with spreading WordPress around, and that needs to be taken into account when you're thinking about, how we got where we are and how we get where we want to go next.
I think there was some other points he was making. John, I know he mentioned some Twitters that you made in his post, and I know you got some views about this. Would you like to share them?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I read this article. There's a lot of people that felt the same way that I did. And just as Sally just said, the growth is because a lot of people are not do-it-yourselfers. The growth is definitely not Jetpack. If anything, Jetpack is to ease the transition from self-hosted WordPress into WordPress.com, which is the money-making arm of the WordPress Foundation. But it's the consultants, the freelancers, and the web agencies that say to the client, we're going to build this on WordPress, and here's why we feel this is the best CMS for you. And they're like, okay. Because I can tell you, I've only had one client in 5 years, like specifically say, we want WordPress. And it was because they had worked with it before. So again, somebody had put it in front of them and it recommended it. That is, and what Matt really said in this article is the boots on the ground. The WordPress would not be 29% if not for the community, if not for the open source people working for free to, not only move the code forward, but the agencies that pay their staff out of their pocket for the, five for the future to better the platform. And, also, all the way down, all the people who, organize the meetups and WordCamps and everything in between, that is the community that is working for free, that is built it up. So I'm not sure that in the end, if Matt, or I should say the foundation, if they put more of their focus on .com in the end, which is where I feel that it's going to go, and the self-hosted WordPress becomes just kind of a redheaded stepchild. I hope and pray that that's not where it's going, but that's really where it feels like it's going to me.
Amen.
What do you think, Chris? Oh, you're mute, I think, Chris.
I thought it was a great article. I think Matt Medeiros did a great job with that. Yeah. And I appreciate how Matt, he doesn't hold punches or whatever. He tells it how he sees it. So you can always count on the Matt report and Matt to, share his true opinion. I have two minds about the whole thing. Yeah. On one level, I've always just been extremely grateful and appreciative of what the WordPress community has, allowed me to do, just as somebody who's built websites for others, who built a product on top of WordPress, who gets amazing distribution since we have a freemium model through the WordPress repository for Lifter LMS. But at the same time, the other head, like Matt's talking about, is it's not that it's bad, but I just feel like there's so much room for improvement in how Automatic relates to the WordPress community of builders, like the people on this call, agency owners, product companies. You can go to WordCamp US and kind of connect with Automatic at a little deeper level. But in some ways, I haven't, I've created training courses about how to use WordPress that have over 10,000 students in them, which has definitely helped spread WordPress. When I was early at it, I thought the WordPress, I guess, community was much, much bigger than it is in terms of power users. And what I noticed today, when I see somebody just getting started with WordPress, I can tell pretty quickly if they're going to be one of those people who just fall in love with it and just go down the rabbit hole forever. And WordPress, it tries to be everything to all people, like for the do-it-yourselfer non-technologists all the way up to, people like us, my company, who are building applications on top of WordPress. it's really hard to serve both all that part of the market. But all that is to say, even like a mention from Automatic about some of the great plugins out there, free and or premium, just even a tweet or some kind of communication. Or I do this because I have a product business. I have calls with customers. I reach out to people. I'm very approachable. And I think WordPress could improve in that. And also just, I think what I'm hearing from Matt in his great article is that just a little bit of acknowledgement to the community of the people who have really helped carry the flag, explain the difference between .com and .org. And, a lot of people approach agencies to solve business problems. They don't care how the sausage is made. They don't care that it's WordPress or not. So it's those agencies that are really, positioning the product, rightly so, because it's awesome, but that deserves just, I think, a little bit of gratitude or acknowledgement and respect. Not that there's none of that. I just think there could be more of it.
I think they're great points, Chris, and it's I sense I'm in total agreement on where the wording you're trying to utilize here, because my feelings are exactly like yours. What were your feelings about it, Adam?
I think there's some chicken egg thing going on here to some extent. It's hard to really tell. There's a lot. I feel like with WordPress, there's a lot of kind of perfect storm stuff going on. I think that, everyone's points have been correct. The agencies are often the one pushing this. The clients generally have no clue. But then once they're on the platform, that has a momentum, and when you have that happening all over the United States and all over the world, and, business after business after business is getting on a big platform, they're not going to switch easily or quickly unless there's a good reason. So that momentum needs to be attributed to the people who are pushing it, to the clients who don't know the difference really, or have vaguely heard of it. They're like, oh, I heard WordPress is good. That's as far as it goes usually.
Yeah, I think my position on this is that I think I understood where Matt was coming from in the post, but I also think if it's handled in the right way, I think the drivers, the driving forces behind the changes which are going to come with WordPress.com are inevitable, because it was in technology and in growth possibilities. It was really falling behind some of its online competition, Shopify, other page building website hosted technologies. It was grossly falling behind, and it is a VC financed business, and I think you could see that in the interview with the other Matt, is that he has a really high, he always mentions it in the interviews, the percentage of the web that WordPress is managing to capture. And I thought in the interview it was quite telling that he uses the word, things were going off the rails a bit. We weren't getting the growth. The growth was slowing down. And to me, that was the language of a typical VC finance company, because it's a growth chase, isn't it? Well, what did you think of that, John?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's so hard, because I think that's a whole nother subject, but I think chasing the unicorns in Silicon Valley is I think we're headed for a perfect storm, as Adam said, like there too. It's weird, because you see companies that have millions of users, or in the case of like WordPress, like hundreds of millions of users, and that's not good enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
So.
Constant growth mindset.
Yeah.
Yes, the only thing that grows without stopping is cancer.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's a great feedback. Obviously, what is the difficult part is finding balance, because there is. I just feel that like what Chris says, that there needs to be better communication channels, a clearer. What is going to be. See, I think it's quite clear that WordPress.com is going to be a fully functioning e-commerce competitors to Shopify, and also its hosted competitors when it comes to actually website building. But having a kind of fully do-it-yourself hosted, where you can host it yourself, it provides enormous benefits for Automatic. See, I in just pure business terms, I actually think Automatic get a lot of benefit from the wider WordPress community. That's the only little bit. I won't say I disagree with you, John. It's just that I think it's a more not so dark, because I actually think Automatic gets enormous benefit from all these consultants, all companies like Chris, web podcasts like this. Obviously, this podcast's about Shopify, but I don't think you would get the breadth of marketing momentum which Automatic benefits from. So it'd just be interesting to see how all this plans out. I'm not gonna go for the third story, because we're taking now about half hour for these two. I thought we would. I'm gonna go for the break, but before I go for the break, folks, I want to talk about our sponsor, and that's Intelligence WP. And what is that? It's a product that allows you to make sense of Google Analytics. You know, that lovely thing that either you install for clients or you install yourself and you hardly ever look at. Well, this plugin, which is fully free, it's not crippled. You install it, and then the people from Intelligence WP will help you even install it and set it up for a small fee. And it just provides a ton of information. I've got it on the WP-Tonic website. You'll find links to it on the WP-Tonic website, and just go and have a look at it. I think you're going to be amazed. So we're going to go for our break, folks, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about extending WordPress with custom fields and the plugins that can help you do that. We'll be back in a minute. We're coming back where Chris, who was on the first half of the show, had to leave, but he told us that. And we've still got a great panel here. I'm going to let John open this out first. John, you're a great opponent or you're a utilizer of advanced custom fields, aren't you? So how do you think that's helped you as a developer, really, John?
Yeah, so ACF is one of the main tools in my toolbox for building sites. And the great thing about Advanced Custom Fields Pro is you have all these things that you can add to individual pages, say if it's by post type or by page template type, or all sorts of things. But you can add everything from basically like text, URL, email fields. You could, and one that's very useful is a repeater field, where you can create a section where you can just like repeat. Say if you have like you want to have like little columns where there's like an image, some text, and a link. You can just create a repeating field and have like little subfields where it gives people more granular control. You can also do things like select a post object, which would be, say, an individual post. You can limit the choices to the client by the post type. And then using the post object, field, you can get different things like the link, the the featured image, the title, those sorts of things, and just gives you more tight control of being able to set up a design for a certain, for individual pages while keeping the client within a certain parameter, keeping them within a box of like, here's what you can select. And so they're not going in there, maybe and just like adding stuff wherever. It gives you control and keeps them on point to where they're not just going in there with a crayon and just creating stuff.
Yes, it helps you structure the content entry to make it clear where things go. So if you want a consistent look for, okay, we have a template for portfolio items, and we always want, there to be an image here and a video here and some text here and the link to the project site there and it to look the same on every page. Well, trying to do that in the WordPress editor as it is, the person who's doing it has to remember, which one goes on top and what goes there and what goes in, and do I have to like add some HTML to get the layout to look right? And so this makes it much more obvious to people where, okay, the URL goes here. And the, custom fields, this is, post meta. If we back up a little bit, this all goes into your post meta table. And it's additional data, basically, on top of your content. And plugins, a lot of plugins that you're familiar with use custom fields in some way. If you have an event plugin, it's got a field for, the start and end, date and time of your event. Those are custom fields. The price on products. These kinds of things are all custom fields. And you may not be aware of that's what they are. And plugins like ACF and pods and CMB and several others were invented in a way because the native support for custom fields in WordPress is pretty kludgy, and it would be interesting to see, how and whether and how these things would have evolved if we actually had a good fields API in WordPress. But in the meantime, these tools came along to help people manage their content in a more efficient and structured way. That, the downside of something like ACF is you have a ton of post meta. It actually makes 2 entries for every field. And searching post meta, querying post meta is slower and more resource intensive than it is for your content or your taxonomies. And so there are some downsides to structuring things this way on a site, but there are lots and lots of upsides. And I've done a lot of sites where, not only did I use ACF to create page templates so that people could, not only do we have, this page that we've already built using it, but when we build new pages, they will follow the same layout, and I've had very good response from clients. And another thing you can do is create an options page if you want something that shows up in a lot of places automatically that can be changed in a central way. And I did this for calls to action that go at the end of posts, because what I had found when importing the site was there were all these outdated CTAs that with sign up for something that was over 3 months ago, and that this way you decide what CTA you want in your options panel divided by post category, and it would update all the old posts as well as the new posts by using that. And I've done that also for press release boilerplate, so that it will always be up to date. You change it centrally. You don't have to go into every post and update that, which is how you would have to do it if the fields were in the actual post or page template. So it's extremely useful. And ACF is one of those plugins where everybody is waiting to see what happens with Gutenberg.
Just to say a little bit, but I think you've just really, both you and John, are really explained, especially that last bit, Sally, the power of that particular plugin. I know Adam's with us, and you're not a developer, Adam, but I just wanted to put this quick question before I go back to John. How do you discuss with your clients at your agency them wanting a lot of flexibility? A lot of them would like to be able to move everything around. But on the other hand, that with a lot of clients, that's probably, and this is not to be detrimental to them, but that's not really a great idea. They end up with a really crappy looking website that won't help their brand and what they're trying to achieve. So how do you get that balance of them wanting to move everything around and that in a lot of ways that wouldn't be a good idea?
Yeah, a lot of it comes in the education and the training side of things, and really, as you form a relationship with a client, you get to realize, okay, this is someone who's going to dig in here, and it's actually going to be worthwhile to teach them how to do some of this stuff and give them some of these greater options. Or, this is someone who it's very much set it and forget it. They're going to need someone to maintain this website. They're going to probably never go back here. And, so we want to give them different, probably a lot less access to some of the back end stuff. But I mean, I love custom fields. We use them on our website for a variety of things. I use them to, but like you said, I'm not a developer, but we use them to set up some automations for social media. And it's something that anybody can. What I like about it is they're pretty easy to set up. If you don't have to know. I set them up. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but it was fairly. Heather looked it all over and said, "Okay, you're not going to ruin everything." But it's fairly easy for anyone to pick up and set up some simple kind of customizations, and then for the developers who really know what they're doing, it's very extendable. So.
Oh, thanks for that, John. So, is that advanced custom fields the only one that you've really utilized and become a part of your real tool set? Because you've got pods as well, haven't you? Which seem to have gone on the back burner, but recently it's been developed out a lot more, hasn't it?
Yeah, and Pods is one that I've heard a lot of good things about. I haven't worked with it really. One that I've worked with a little bit is that sounds very similar to that sounds similar to Pods. Is called Types.
Yeah, Types.
And yeah,
that's the one we use.
Yeah.
Well, that's a French company. That's a
Mm-hmm.
French company, actually. I think I'm correct in saying that they're basically it's Types, and they've got two plugins that work together.
It was Types and Views, and they've sort of combined it into this thing called Toolset. Yes, I had some rather mixed experiences with it, but it is designed to be kind of a one-stop shop for not only creating custom fields, but also creating custom post types and custom taxonomies, which I know you can do with Pods. I haven't used Pods, but we're going to be having a presentation about it.
Oh, right.
On at the meetup for somebody who used it in a particular use case where it made more sense for that site than using ACF. So yeah, there are definitely, and I know people who use CMB a lot, and there are several different tools that you can use to accomplish the same thing. And
I know they are, but I don't know if you would agree with this, Sandy. I think the three that we've mentioned, advanced custom fields, pods, and this type and views, I think they're the dominant three players. Would you agree on that, Sally?
Yeah, I'd want some data. I mean, my sense is you're probably right in terms of things I hear, but I don't know. It's like, I got to know and work with ACF, and so that's what I usually use, because we cannot all be expert at all tools. And one of the things about using ACF to create these templates versus using something like a page builder is that you have much more control about what you allow people to do. If you install a page builder for your client, it goes back to kind of giving them that opportunity to turn the site into GeoCities. And so although there are definitely cases where something that I might once have done with ACF, I would say, well, this is going to be quicker to do with Beaver Builder, because I don't have to write the code to display the template and all that kind of thing. There are also still going to be the cases where it makes much more sense to me to use ACF and to set something up where you have these specific places that people can put in their content, and that's it, and there's less chance of then putting things in the wrong place and effectively breaking something.
Yeah, I think that's great. Hey, John, I think even if a company's got a graphic designer on board, a lot of graphic designers that work for, let's say, for a company that's like got 50 to 100 employees, that they're going to be responsible to almost produce everything for the company, print, web. So even if they've got a graphic designer, it's probably best to use something like advanced custom fields and set up templates, because they're not dealing with the web every day, are they, John?
No, and like I said, maybe in the near future, WordPress will maybe it'll get to a point where it's easy to create stuff in the back end, but for now, and that's a whole thing too. But for now, like using stuff like ACF, using things like pods is a good way to get there. Yeah.
Right. I just thought I'd point that out, because I'm not being disparaging to general graphic designers, but I've worked with some that working for companies of that size, and they really have to cope with everything, so they can't specialize in a specific area. I was interested to hear, Adam, that you're with this other product, this views and types. Is that what you use?
Yeah, that's what we use, and we like it. I forget why Heather chose it. I'm sure she had a very good developer typey reason for it, but God, that makes me sound so stupid. But she chose it, and I used it to set up some custom fields here and there, and it was very simple. It was something that someone with a non-tech background who knows nothing about HTML or PHP or CSS can do, and it works very well for I've never had a problem with it, and we've used it to set up. I think all these plugins are great because they allow you to provide a custom solution for the client, and that's kind of ultimately what we're doing, right? As these WordPress shops, is we're trying to make sure you get the best solution, and this gives us another tool in our tool chest to ensure that we can make a solution that perhaps keeps you from breaking your own things. So
yeah, just to wrap up, folks, I think the other thing about looking at these three particular solutions that we've mentioned is that there's a lot of documentation and a lot of lessons and tutorials out there around all three of these that we've mentioned. The one that I used extensively was Advanced Custom Fields. I forgot the developer's name. He's based in Australia, isn't he, John?
Elliot Condon.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks for that. And I have to try and get him on the show, but getting people from Australia is matching the time zone is a little bit difficult. But he's been supporting it. It is an amazing product. The thing is, folks, if you want to advance, if you're in that intermediate development situation and you want to move forward, learning how to utilize one of these products, plugin solutions, is really going to make you a much more effective developer. So have a look at them. The other problem, as both John and Sally have mentioned, is it's all up in the air a little bit about what's going to happen with all this, isn't it? I think that's another area that's kind of stuck a stick in the hornet nest a little bit, because when they the last the last thing about this, they were talking about iframes. Is that right, John?
They removed it. They decided that they were not going to use that for meta boxes in Gutenberg.
Thank God for that. Thank God for that.
So yes, I mean that was, but they are working on finding a way to implement this because I mean obviously they're I'm thinking, all right, so what happens to all these clients where I have put where I have created templates from ACF so that they can have this structured content entry. What happens to that? Where is that going to go if Gutenberg becomes the default editor? But of course, it's also like, okay, so like everybody who has installed Yoast SEO or any kind of a plugin that creates a custom post type that has a lot of additional meta boxes, how is that going to be handled? And it's a very serious question. It's one that developers have been asking about Gutenberg since the beginning, and it is one that the Gutenberg team is working on finding a way to implement effectively, because they don't want to, I don't think that they desire to break this stuff. The purpose of this tool is not to screw everybody up. It may put, I mean, we've already seen one page builder, developers say, oh, we're going to discontinue this plugin. So there are some people who may be put out of work by it, but the point is not to mess everything up, because these. I've
never even heard of that page builder.
I had. And of course, Adam isn't. Dr. Evil Adam isn't with us, but he had a long discussion with that developer a couple of months ago. But it is kind of challenging because we don't know, and that's sort of like, well, do I go ahead and create the same solutions for people that I was, or what do I do right now while they're not sure how this is going to work? So it's kind of a challenging time to be working with custom fields and custom meta boxes in WordPress, and yet I can't see that that they're going away, that there's really going to be a good alternative, or that and not everything that's a meta box could be effectively converted into a block.
Hey, John, have you come to any conclusions about how you're going to probably be handling all this?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I guess it's because honestly, it's I've built dozens and dozens of sites over the last couple of years that rely like heavily on that before Gutenberg was ever a gleam in Matt Mullenweg's eye. And I'm not sure like how it's all going to shake out. I mean, I guess it's just
that was the voice of an experienced but weary developer, WordPress developer, folks.
Yeah, but hopefully cooler heads will prevail, and they will resolve having the fields in something besides an iframe, and in a way that doesn't break like half the web. I don't think that they want that to be their legacy.
No, I don't think so.
If things don't shake out, because that's slated to drop in WordPress 5.0, I have a feeling it might get pushed back a little bit.
I would have thought so.
I hope so.
Either that, or we may have a long wait for WordPress. We're going to be up to WordPress 4.9.15.
Could be. I honestly, I'm not. I mean, when it does like get integrated into Core, I'm going to be very cautious. Yeah. And that's a whole thing too. Talking to the hosting companies, because some of them upgrade automatically. That's actually should be on my to-do list for today. Call some of the hosts and see what their policies are.
Yeah, I'm never keen with these hosts that automatic. It should be an option. Like everything.
Up to now, it hasn't been an issue.
No,
this is the first time it's like made me fear.
I think he's playing a pushing 5 over Christmas. Christmas Day, it'll probably be released. Sorry, John.
Merry Christmas to you all.
Happy Christmas, folks. Here we are. Sort it out. It's open source software. You can adapt it if you want.
Good luck.
Sorry, I just couldn't resist it, John. I'm a terrible. But thanks, panel. I think it's been a lively discussion. I'm going to let you. How can people find out more about you? We'll start with Sally. How can they find out more, Sally?
You can find me at WPFangirl.com. I am at Sally Getch on Twitter, and the meetup is eastbaywp.com.
And how can people find out more about you, John?
You can find me at my website, which is lockdowndesign.com. And you can follow me on Twitter if you dare at lockdown_. Adam.
Before I ask Adam, you want to follow John's Twitter. He has some good stuff. Adam, how can people find out more about you?
I have dared to follow John's Twitter, and I'm glad I did. BlueSteelSolutions.com, extra E in steel, at BlueSteelTX, and my website's adamfat.com.
Yeah, and he's got some great stuff on there about content. And he came on the show last week for an interview, and I really enjoy it. And you have to come back, Adam, for another interview. We only touched the subject, did we not?
Oh my God.
And how can you find out about me, folks? It's really easy. Go to the Facebook page, WP-Tonic. We're going to be starting a group probably next week, and hopefully the panel will join in with some of the discussions on that. And also you can get hold of me on my Twitter feed at Jonathan Denwood, and you can email me. If you're feeling very gracious, if you could leave a review on iTunes. I know it's painful on the PC, but if you can, it really does help the show. And we'll see you next week, where we're going to have another round table and another really enjoyable conversation, and just have a feast about WordPress. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.